Hello and welcome to Wednesday's Child, a Digitas podcast for inspiring no fluff conversations about how authenticity, diversity, equity, representation in brand storytelling can create space for growth, connection, and transformational experiences. I'm your host, Danisha Lomax, and joining us today is Dominique B. Fluker. Y'all, I'm about to read y'all her amazing resume. This woman is a dynamic journalist, essayist, editorial strategist, and interior design storyteller. She's committed to covering impactful women of color, Black stories, and news at the intersection of business, lifestyle, wellness, culture, and entertainment. Her writing has been published in Forbes Women, Essence, Glamour, Travel and Leisure, Insider, Variety, Women's Health, and more. She has also worked in the social and tech space, holding roles at LinkedIn, Glassdoor, TikTok, and Instagram. Let me continue. As a culture and entertainment enthusiast, she has interviewed legendary celebrities such as Oprah, Toni Braxton, John Legend, our fave Tracy Ellis Ross, Shirley Ralph, Robin Roberts, and Serena Williams, among so many more and so many others. And most recently, the Black Female Therapist Organization named her a top 25 trailblazer in mental health and wellness. Dominique, hello and welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you today.
Thank you. I'm so honored to have you as my guest. Your accolades speak volumes, and I'm so excited for our listeners to learn a little bit more about you. But one way I like to intro also folks to the pod is to talk a little bit about your celestial connections. Tell us, do you know your top three?
I know my big three
Okay.
into my personality, but it's a Leo, Sag.
Okay, so just off of that, I already know you're coming with big energy, lots of confidence, and awareness for attention and magnitude for leadership. A lot of that is natural to who you are. But I want you to also tell our listeners a little bit more about how you came into learning about your top three. I know there's a medium that you meet with. So talk to us a little bit about that and what that means to you.
Yeah, definitely. I grew up very religious, but I also grew up with a mother who was religious, yes, but really loved astrology. And she was also a Leo as well. In fact, our birthdays are several days apart. Hers is July 26th and mine is August 7th. So she taught me the teachings of astrology, specifically Leos, and really allowed me to lean into those characteristics. And then she also used to go to a lot of mediums. I believe there's a medium, a psychic called John Edwards. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but he was our introduction to that on TV. And she met him through Dr. Phil, Oprah, and we connected spiritually through that way. We have a lot of vivid dreams. We tend to see things a little bit before they happen. In other words, our intuitions are it's very high. So that was a way. And then when I got older, especially entering corporate America, I decided to get some spiritual help as well in a form of mediums. And while I do go to church religiously, I also think that it's a part of my spiritual practice to also seek spiritual counsel elsewhere.
I love hearing that as a Bay Area native like yourself, born into faith, and it's definitely a part of how I express myself today. But it's nothing wrong with expanding and exploring new ways to, like you said, grow your intuition. Also, I couldn't imagine what having two Leo women in one household would look like. But thank you
Yeah,
for sharing.
yeah, it was amazing, honestly. I mean, we definitely had our little fits,
Mhm.
but just to understand that, someone is a couple of days apart from me
Mm.
and gets being a Leo. And I think also I will say July Leos are way different than August Leos, even if we're a few
Absolutely.
days apart. So she just got it, and she always encouraged me to hone in on my speaking skills. She put me in dance classes. She really understood that I belong on some type of stage. And in fact, she even said like if I ever get famous or noted somewhere that I should drop my last name and just be Dominique Brielle. I said, okay, mom.
Okay, sounds you, Brielle. Let's go. Mom had a plan. And it sounds like your dynamic personality was really cultivated in you at a very young age. And I actually want to take that moment to kind of pivot a bit into how that has actually helped you facilitate and grow these amazing points in your career across journalism, content marketing, storytelling. So, can you talk to us a bit about maybe it started with your mom or maybe it started somewhere else, but what exactly inspired you to embark on these paths?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a few things. There's a few ties, and this is so interesting. It's current right now in the zeitgeist around girl bosses, media bosses, and as we're reflecting, I'm not going to say my age on here, but as we were reflecting on the early 2010s, we're seeing a lot of resurgence when it comes to fashion, um, career media bosses, girl boss, some Sophia Amoroso, that whole movement. And
Yeah.
I really fell into that in college when I was at Sarah Lawrence College in New York, interning for free, hitting the Manhattan pavements, going across the city lines to do internships at magazines, PR firms. And when I got back to the Bay Area, to kind of settle there, I started on the PR track and then worked my way up to um, become an account supervisor at a large agency at Edelman, and then transition into tech. But my early beginnings, I believe, was with my parents, as my dad was a photojournalist for the Oakland Tribune. And
Yeah.
so he always took me on his photo assignments. I was, in kindergarten running around in the original Tribune building, which we know is iconic
Such
now.
an icon.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and so, seeing editors fight over dictionaries, there were no Grammarly back then, to fact check the work and the spellings, and then also just physically being on the beat with my dad,
Yeah.
going to the subjects, interview subjects, or the people that he took pictures of and asking for their names and writing it down in the notepad and helping my dad in that way, and just having a real close-up look to what media is in different forms, and seeing the outcome of, okay, this is, the reporter gets the story, they're working on it, they're sending my dad out on a freelance assignment to take photos of that story, and this is how it ends up in a newspaper.
Mhm.
So I got that, and then I've always wanted to write. And so when I got accepted to Sarah Lawrence, that really expanded my worldview.
Yeah.
And I was able to continue to do that work. And then, of course, when I got back to the Bay Area, I deepened my practice with content marketing, tech, editorial tech marketing. And it's a lot different than the type of work that I'm doing now, but the tenets are there. And so I think all those elements really rounded out what I do now, and it's given me a solid foundation.
That's amazing. Just to dive a little bit deeper into being with your dad and seeing how he was taking those photos and what he would kind of use in his final output, do you think and how has those parallels come into how you do work with interior design? I think I'm picking up something interesting around using that insight to curate a space, and I wonder if you can go a little bit deeper there.
Yeah, so I like to say that I'm in the business of people
Mm.
and storytelling. So merging those two, that's where interior design lies, but with decor and furniture. And so when I founded DBF Interiors, it was at the beginning of 2021, right, fresh out of the pandemic. I was working home. It was my first time working from home a lot. It was my first time in tech, and I really wanted to make sure that my space and my new home office was great. And so I said, you know what? I designed my space. I am going to pitch it to an editor at Apartment Therapy, and I got it featured, it was really exciting. And I said, you know what? Maybe I should put together a business and a website and essentially a digital storefront to see if anyone else, the executives that I know, need help. And turns out they did. So I was designing home offices at first, and then it morphed into living rooms. And now it's even morphed into me getting design inspiration for editorial pieces, a print series. And that type of kind of curiosity
Mm.
um, it, and creativity has really helped my business expand in so many different ways. We have candles. We're always working on different products, and I've taken my expertise and translated it now on print pages, which I'm really, really excited about.
I love that. First of all, come on, DBF Interiors. Y'all look her up. Follow. And if you need some curation in your space, definitely tap in. But I also saw you recently in a home goods campaign. I thought it was pretty amazing and pretty epic. But it's so lovely to be able to see how you bring all of those parts of your life and your career together to really be this dynamic storyteller. But one of the things I also would love to have your point of view on, particularly when it comes to being a Black woman in the space who is in editorial, who does storytelling with content across the social and tech spaces, who is a curator by trade and by birthright, if you will. What does it actually mean to curate and create those spaces for yourself and for other women who are coming up in the space who may be looking up to you?
Yeah, definitely. That's such a great question. I operate a lot off of legacy, impact, and making sure that others are feeling comfortable in their space to operate in that same way. As creatives, we're doing purpose filled, purpose driven type of work, and that can be draining. People don't talk about that. That can be really draining because it's a responsibility, as a storyteller, not only to myself, but to the ancestors and also to the public. We've talked a little bit uh, about this before recording today is that, your work is out to the world. So that is a lot of pressure. And so when I'm designing spaces, when I'm doling out tips via Instagram or editorial, it's really to encourage um, the creative to feel comfortable in their home and their space to create and fulfill the their potential and to really think beyond the box. And no one can really do that unless you feel at ease in your home. And at home is a safe space to do that. So I think it's definitely a lot of synergy between creative work, storytelling, and interior design. And we're starting to see that now as a lot of people are feeling emboldened to create their own spaces just how they like it.
I love that. I'm also picking up this theme about corporate just not being enough because you're seeking and creating and curating these new and other spaces for yourself to kind of balance the life you're living from a corporate perspective. And I think that's really important for creatives like yourselves and anyone who wants into this space to really think about how do you create those safe spaces where that curation, curiosity can expand and grow. There's something else that I feel like we're hinting at a bit, and I want to dive a little bit deeper into with you is how are these curated spaces that you're creating allowing you to really build community? How are you thinking about relationships different, be that in person, be that online, as you are putting out content again on the social spaces? What does that really mean for you? And how are you thinking about community a little bit different here?
Yeah, definitely. I think when you're curating or carving out a digital space for yourself, it's important to think about whether it's interiors, whether it's online. It's important to think about the audience and your reader, your consumer, and always keep that top of mind. And so I think now that I'm entering a space where people have read my work, they know me, they'll see me in person, or they've seen one of my interior creations be featured online in a publication. A shout out to us. We were featured in several interior publication, trade publications. But aside from that, yeah, aside
We
from
like a
that,
shout out.
uh,
Shout out, mama. Oh,
yeah, a little plug. They want to know who I am at my core. And although I am a notoriously private person online where people see my work, they don't see the inner workings of my life. I think that's really important for creators to keep a little bit of something to themselves. It's okay to open up and share the mechanics of your work. That's what I'm doing now. Recently came off the heels of Essence Fest where I served as a moderator and now I'm showing, okay, this is a little snippets of the conversation, or this is me behind the scenes, kicking it at the Essence VIP lounge with my colleagues and my industry contemporaries. Like that is really important so people get to know you and get invested in your brand. I think whether you're in corporate, at an agency, at a publication, it's so important to immerse others with your personal brand. So wherever you go, people are invested in you.
that's right.
That's your core.
That is.
And that is where what I'm trying to do. And I feel like I have done for several years now, but I'm deepening that practice.
I love that. I also would love if you can share the story that you were telling me yesterday about being on the streets in New Orleans and someone walking up to you and asking you to sign a copy of some, like, I'm not going to share it for you. I want the people to hear it from your ears, from your mouth to their ears rather. But I think it just underscores the importance of your personal brand going even before you get to a place in person. It lives everywhere, like you said, and I thought it was so impactful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to note for creators that, your work, when you put it out there, you don't know who's reading. So make sure that your work is tip top shape. Like I've had a lot of moments where I was surprised this year where, my work reached the Tamron Hall show and they made a whole segment of one of my pieces and brought one of the experts that I included in the piece onto the show to flesh out that segment. So shout out to the Tamron Hall
Yeah.
show producers. But that was one of those examples. But when I was down there at Essence Fest just a couple of days ago, what really almost made me tear up was when I was walking through the convention center and a woman, grabbed my arm, stopped me. She did so politely and was like, "Oh my God, Dominique, I follow your work. I read your byline where I'm just so excited for the panels that you have coming up." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much." I've never seen this woman in my life, but I also made sure to greet her with kindness and thank her profusely for reading my articles and really investing in my brand. And I don't have a lot of followers on Instagram. I'm under 10K, but it really doesn't matter, right? And that's the reminder that I'm getting myself. And then the second story that I told you was I was actually in the hotel. Lobby, and we were talking about my post at Essence and how I recently penned an article, a print article about Hurricane Katrina and its relation to mental health when it comes to the natives in New Orleans. And she had her own Katrina story, and she said, "You wrote that? I haven't seen anyone talking about it in other publications." I said, "Yeah, we dedicated an entire magazine to." The people of New Orleans. We love you all." And she said, "Well, can I see it?" And the fact that, and we could talk more about this. I'm assuming we will in this episode about alignment.
That's
The fact that I had, the fact that I had a May June um, magazine upstairs, and we're on July August right now, which I have a ton of those upstairs. But I had one May June magazine
Yeah.
And someone gave that to me in the convention center because I'm like, "Oh, yeah, like, this is one of the collectors that do you mind if I take this?" "Oh, yeah, go ahead." And she said, "Can I please have it?" I said, "Okay, let me go back to my room and I'll get it to you." Then I showed her the piece for proof, and she said, "Could you please sign it?" And so that was my first ever autograph,
Come
and
on,
it was just
autographs.
so meaningful. My team ate it up and loved it. It's like, I'm
As they should.
lifestyle editor has it. People ask it for, autographs and, humbly though,
That's right.
because it made it, my friend said, this is the real time impact that
Mhm.
journalists are trying to go for. And this is it right here in the dead of the night at 10 p.m. when you're
I know
walking in
that's
from
right.
somewhere. This is the impact where you're touching one reader at a time, and all it takes is one.
All it
And so
Mhm.
I encourage creatives to think that way instead of rushing to scale when you should be concerned and focused in on the work that will be impactful and reach one reader.
That's right. There are so many things about this story that I want to just give you gratitude for. First of all, when the woman touched you and you turned around and responded with grace, which I know, personal space is a thing, but just you meeting her with gratitude already meant you were ready to meet that moment. And so from
Yeah, and
there,
you know what?
yeah.
You know what? I just have to interject because this happens a lot to
Ooh.
me, on red carpets, and I don't know if it's, I feel so connected to not only to my readers, our readers and my readers, personally of the byline, but to people in general. So,
Mm.
I'm on red carpets too now in LA where I'm a on-camera correspondent at times for Essence, and celebrities will touch my hand. There's a clip of it on
How
Instagram, and I
lovely.
love her so much, and where I'm holding her hand, and she's crying, and she's coming to we're because I'm aware of her work, and I'm aware of her personally, and, so, celebrities will touch my hand, people will hug me all the time, and I don't know what that is, but people feel really connected to me, and I think that only deepens and expands my work because I have been told that I have a certain level of empathy, and people, I think,
That's
smell
right.
that on me, and so that
People
they
make you
feel so
better.
comfortable.
That's right. And we're living in a time even more so than ever when people are looking for that deep connection in person. And if someone has been following your brand, they know who you are, and they do have that opportunity to actually touch, which is such a human thing to be able to do, you and feel like that connection is growing. That's beautiful. That's a blessing. And I love that you carry that with you to always operate in that gracious, empathetic way. But the other thing I definitely heard from your story is when you are ready for a moment, because we've talked about you expanding, you growing, and what does that look like for you in the future, the universe will meet you at that moment. So it was no surprise that you only had that one copy, and that one copy was only going to be for that person that needed to have it, that needed to have that signed copy from you. And I think those are the signs and signals that we need to be in tune with more as we think about creation, as we think about tapping into our creative intuition. And you did that. So to me, that's just a signal that the universe is meeting you where it knows you want to go.
Oh, yeah, for sure, and I think, it's all affirmation, right? As
Mm.
we begin to deepen our crafts and, have standout opportunities that allow us to expand and elevate, the universe will meet us where we're at, but also show us an inside track on, okay, this is where you're going to go. This is what's required of you for the next level, and then the next level might be, brushing up on your people skills,
That's right.
making sure that you're stopping and talking to every person that has some inquiries about you, because that is elevating and expanding your personal brand, but also leaving a personal touch for people to understand that they are really important.
They
So
are.
I think that is something that I'm trying to do.
Um, you also have me thinking about the Toni Morrison quote, and we talked about this before. It's once your art is out there, it's no longer yours. And so, but what comes back to you as another form of art that you can act on? and Motivate Later is that response from the community. So I love to see it. As you have been expressing how you create from a space of authenticity, how do you protect that when timing constraints and work, things that are happening kind of in culture that you may need to jump on quickly? How are you really protecting your space to create authentically? Yes, boundaries.
Then yeah, so, I mean, everyone can get all of me when it comes to my work, my dreams well, not even my dreams, I
Same goes for you. I know that's right.
yeah, but, my work, my, just who I am when it comes to career and being ambitious, but when it comes to my personal life, no. I just have to keep certain things from me. I keep my friends private. I keep whoever I'm, in deep relationship with private. I keep my family private for the most part.
Yeah.
I think the things that I will share when it comes to my family, my parents passed away, but I also have shared my journey with grief because I know that it will inspire others. However, I'm not going into the nitty gritty of it all the time.
Gotcha.
So I think boundaries have helped me to remain grounded, remain humble, and also protect, well, what's important to me most, and that's my dreams. Because you don't know who's for you, who's not, and not saying to be closed off, but just keep certain things to yourself until it materializes, and then you can share.
I love that so much because it is a privilege to allow yourself to dream. Not a lot of people are able to tap into that state, and so to keep it to yourself, I think is a form of protection, which I think is okay. I think it's okay to say, "I'm not ready to share that yet," and that is one of the boundaries that I think we're all working through as we think about what is the separation between what I share on social media versus what's happening in real life, and using your intuition and your ability to do that is a beautiful thing, so I think that is okay completely.
I'm also a deep manifester.
Come
I
on,
think,
manifest.
um, so I will, I'll fast, I will meditate, but I'll also do the work. You just can't be fasting, meditating, and praying without doing the work. Faith without works is dead.
Come on.
So in that scripture, and I think that because creatives, it's kind of like a buzzy word nowadays. Back in 2010 or so, we didn't really have that word. It was just hitting the ground running, connecting, doing the work. And I still am very true to that practice. And yeah, so manifesting is a part of that. But I also really try my hardest to pair the work to make sure that I'm executing the goals every quarter. Every quarter, I have new goals to hit for myself. And it's fun. It's a game to me. I like playing, I love the game.
Listen, that's your Leo Sag. You know, you are always moving the goalpost for you. It never ends, and we love to see it. And I just also want to acknowledge and affirm you in that. I think as creatives, we are all trying to bring our own humanity back into the work. And so it's not really necessarily about just hitting the pavement, but how do I do that in a way that honors who you are and how you're growing? And I think that is actually the perfect segue for our closing cards. This is a moment where we pull a few cards for our guests, and we do this to close out the discussion with affirmation, confirmation, and really diving deeper into our magic. And so there are two cards that we have for you. I'm going to show them. One is Temperance, and the other is the High Priestess. It doesn't say the High Priestess on this card. It actually says the God Seed. I've actually been working with a new card. It's the Lineage of Change, and Adrienne Marie Brown and a few of her colleagues and friends and mystics have put together these cards, and they're beautiful and they're magic. But I want to talk about what the Temperance and High Priestess or the Godspeed means for you. So for temperance, temperance, this card suggests balance, harmony, and healing. Really leaning a little bit into a bit of moderation. So think about alternative treatments for self-care. A quote I want to read is, "The truth of our design is that we thrive when we find the balance that feels enough to us." So as you are seeking, creating new pathways for yourself, always thinking about being in right relationship with yourself and with your community. And then for the high priestess, it's always advising you to tap in and listen to your intuition. You talked about being empathetic and really leaning into that. So how do you allow yourself to do that for yourself while you make these decisions that you're coming up against? Another quote I will read, it's by Octavia Butler. It's in The Parable of the Sower. But it says, all successful life is adaptable, opportunistic, tenacious, and fecund. Understand this, use this, shake God. So thank you so much, Dominique. Um, I love having you on my pod, and appreciate all the wisdom you were able to bring to our listeners about creativity, about curation, about intuition and empathy and wellness. Again, to our listeners, I'm your host, Danisha Lomax. Thank you so much for listening in. And again, question everything. That is really where our true magic lies. Stay tuned for our next episode of Wednesday's Child.